Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment meeting for November 7th, 2019. We ask that you silence your cell phones at this time if you have not already done so. If you are not the applicant and you wish to speak on a matter, we ask that you fill out one of these white forms and submit it to the board so that we have your name and address in the record. I'd like to welcome the new board members. We appreciate your service to the city and to the board. We look forward to having you. The first item on the agenda is to receive the minutes from the September, let's see which meeting this was, October 17th meeting of the Board of Adjustment. Do we have any changes or a motion for approval?
Motion to approve minutes from October 17th.
Do you have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes from the October 17th meeting. Cast your votes, please. And they're approved. Next order of business is continuance requests or application withdrawals. Do we have any?
We have item number 14, case number 14663, being continued to the December 5th, 2019 meeting.
For this application, it's been continued multiple times. Was anyone here to speak on that application? Okay. On this one, I just wanted to have in the record that the applicant will need to show good cause for another continuance after this one. Me personally, I'm okay with granting one more, voting in favor of one more, but if it gets continued again, I'd like the applicant to come in and establish good cause. Do I have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue item 14663.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue case number 14 as requested. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved. Any other continuance requests?
We have two more continuance requests. I'll read them both at one time. Case number 1, or item number 1, case number 14672 to the December 5th meeting, and item number 2, case number 14669 to continue to the December 5th meeting.
Is anyone here to speak on either of those matters? Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to continue items 1 and 2.
Second.
A motion and a second to continue items number 1 and 2 to the December 5th meeting. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved. There are no matters on the consent docket, so we'll move to items requiring a separate vote.
Apologize, I was going to appear on 3B, request by the public.
Okay.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. I am the attorney for the appellant on item number 12. I spoke with Mr. Work, who is counsel for HPI, and he is in agreement with the continuance. However, I wanted to ask a question of the board on these appeals. It's difficult, I think, for both sides without a full complement of its members. Understanding that Mr. Voorhees is not here, so I want to just ask if on December 5th anybody has any reason to believe they won't be here. And if everyone is going to be here, continuance would allow us to also, although I think it irrelevant, allow him an inspection on the, I believe, the mold issue that he has raised. So,
Board members, any conflicts on December 5th that you're currently aware of?
Not currently.
None for me. Nope.
Same here. I can't speak for Mr. Voorhees.
sure, fair enough. So with that, I think we jointly ask for a continuance to the December 5th docket.
Mr. Work, did you have any comments? I see you standing there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kelly Work, and I'm an attorney representing the Historical Preservation, Inc., which has filed a response in opposition to the appeal. And I just want to confirm what Mr. Box has said. We're in agreement with the continuance until December 5th, and as he stated, we understand that in the interim here, they will allow us to conduct the inspection of the premises that we had requested and which was the subject of our motion that we had filed. So that should resolve that issue then. Thank you.
I might also say that nobody would be able to be here today from the Planning Department for Historic Preservation, so that might work out best.
Okay. I think the only person I had signed up to speak was well, I guess Gary McCracken, and he's in agreement?
He's one of our witnesses.
Okay. Board members, any objection? Any motions?
I'll make a motion to continue item 12 to December 5th.
Motion and a second to continue item number 12, appeal in case number 14645 to the December 5th meeting. Cast your votes, please. And
Thank you.
We have item number 3, case number 14674, request for a variance to the required paved driveway approach to permit a building with walls constructed of exposed metal finish.
I'm sorry to interrupt real quickly, but I will mention to the parties that just requested a continuance, I know that there was a motion to have an additional inspection conducted on the property. My understanding, and I'll defer to municipal counselor to the extent that this needs to be confirmed, but is that we're bound by the existing record in this case. And so I'm not sure that we'll be able to consider that. I know there are other reasons for continuing the case, but if that's the sole reason for continuing the case, we might want to just hear it today.
No, understood. No, and I agree. I think you're bound by the record that HP had. So we're happy to allow the inspection to occur, but we're going to contest its validity or its ability to even be heard by the
I think
board.
that was your comment about how it'd be irrelevant.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Work?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment in response to your comments, Mr. Chairman, and we'll certainly be, happy to brief that issue, but in our view, what you're bound by are the issues that were raised in front of the HP Commission, and this certainly was an issue that was raised by the applicant and was presented to the HP Commission. I don't think that you're bound by the specific paper documents or material that was submitted. In other words, it's a trial de novo in front of the Board of Adjustment. It's not an appeal on the record. So just with that, we'll be prepared to present that issue, though.
Okay. If you have some briefing on that issue, that would be very helpful.
All right.
For the purposes of, obviously, if it goes to the district court, we're going to want to know whether we're right about this issue or not.
All right.
And then I don't want to put the municipal counselor on the spot, but is it possible to have some kind of memo to the board?
Sure.
Okay.
All
On
right,
that
thank
issue.
you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Back to item number 3, case number 14674, request for a variance to the required paved driveway approach to permit a building with walls constructed with exposed metal finish. The requirement that a church front a street meeting the standards of at least a collector, and the minimum 40,000 square foot lot size for a church in the R1 single family residential district located at 3400 Mildred Avenue.
Is the applicant present?
Robert Haggard, P.O. Box 21126, OKC 73156.
Okay. If you could just kind of give us an overview of your application for the
Sir?
record. If you could just give us an overview of your application for the record. If you could just present your application for the record, just give us an overview of the application.
My overview?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, my overview is that I was contracted to design an addition to this church, and in the process of doing that, I discovered these 4 things that we're trying to get a variance on. And I only know to speak like, well, the church has been there since 1980, and it can't move. So I don't know what you do about something like that. And as you can see by this picture here, Mildred Lane has never been paved. And I canvassed quite a few places across the street, and finally I have a recording of it from the head of streets. It came back and it said, "I'm sorry, but we have no plans to ever pave that street." So they're saying they will not pave that street. And so it doesn't seem necessary to have an approach and a curb that goes down to dirt. They did add that little piece there that you saw. So I don't know how to speak to the other three things, that the church is physically there. I don't know how it was passed back in 1980 and allowed them to get there, but that's what we're asking for relief for this little 35-member church that's been operating since 1980.
I've noted a discrepancy between the staff report and your comments. The staff report notes that this is a non-conforming building that didn't need to comply with any, none of these code provisions existed at the time this was constructed. Is that accurate, or is this kind of a non-permitted, no variance situation?
No, it wasn't in the code at the time when it was built, the 40,000 square foot and the portion about the metal walls or the collector street, which has made it non-conforming. And but since he's adding on to the building, it's losing its non-conforming. So that's the reason we had to add all those on there.
Board members, any questions? I know I would normally hesitate in some of these cases, but it seemed like, one, since it's been there for so long, that's okay. Just since it had been there for so long, that tips into your favor. And it seems like it conforms with some of the surrounding buildings in the area. I think that tips in your favor. So, I mean, I think I can support it, even though if this were maybe in a different area, I'd be a little bit more hesitant. I'm only one member of the board, so.
Yeah, I mean, being a gravel road and everything, it's been there since 1980. It's hard not to support it.
Was anyone else here to speak on this case? Board members, any comments or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve case number 14674 by the reasons it meets statutory requirements for a variance.
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second to approve case number 14674 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Sir, there were 4 items listed. Is all okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Item number 4, case number 14676, request for a variance to the required hip or gable roof with a minimum 412 pitch for a residential accessory building in the R1 Single Family Residential District located at 6700 North Country Club Drive.
Hi, I'm Ryan Cunningham. I'm the applicant. I don't know if you have all the materials. Did you have the architectural plans? Is that not? Okay. Maybe that would be helpful. Did you have the letter from our architect that made these plans? No.
If you have that, we can include it in the record.
You do have it?
If you have it, you can provide it and it'll make its way to the record.
The letter describes the existing structure, the house that's been there since 1956, and that house was part of a modern ranch style of architecture, and that the reason she designed the out structure as she did was to conform with the existing structure that's there. So there's a flat roof on the existing structure. This would be a flat roof with some pitch to it for the design of the outbuilding. And she states here that the reasons for this was to conform basically with what's there. After the notice went to the neighbors, There are really only two neighbors that even have a view of the structure where it's going to be placed, and that would be, I have another document here that I made. So to the south of the house, and south is listed on your photograph there, is the Windlekins, and they would have some view of it. And then to the southwest is Dr. David Kallenberger, and I gave them the architectural plans and the letter from the architect, Lisa Weatherman, that you are reviewing now, and we talked about it. And they have both provided me with letters in support of the application, because they feel that a 412 roof, if the structure is built with the 412 roof, it's going to be more obtrusive and less cohesive with the existing architecture, and they would prefer to have the building built as designed by the architect and support the application that we've submitted. So I have these letters here. So the outbuilding is not going to be used for like a storage shed or something. It has a beautiful glass windows, and it's going to operate as a guest house. There's a full bath designed in it, and it's an area I paint, and it's an area for me to paint too. So it's not just something to throw the lawnmowers in or something like that.
And this is on the golf course, it looks like?
Yes.
I guess, John, the golf course receives notice of this? And I assume, given that fairway right there, they would receive notice. Okay. Board members, any questions?
I was trying to get a feel for the existing structure, but
I think it's nothing, right? Isn't there nothing there, or?
well,
Oh,
the
you mean the
existing house
existing
is
house?
trying to
Oh, I
match.
brought-
Just trying to.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get my comments out there. I think this is a pretty unique situation that fits the conditions for a variance. You're not requesting a variance to the size of anything or setback or anything like that. I think, especially given that there's nothing really in front of this other than the golf course and a bunch of land, and it looks like a pond, I think that tips in your favor. I can support this.
Yeah, I'm the same. Any reason why I couldn't?
I would say that since have the support of the people who I guess would be most impacted by this, given that the other land is empty, I can also support it.
Can you get us a tea time? No, I'm just kidding.
I can work on that.
Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to approve case number 14676 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you very much.
We have item number 5, case number 14678, request for a variance to the non-conforming use and building regulations in the R1 Single Family Residential District located at 546 Southwest 35th Street.
Hi, I'm Ashley Rogers, and it's 546 Southwest 35th. And we're requesting a variance. This property was built in 1930, and it's zoned residential, and we have it up for sale, and the lender will not lend on it because if anything happens, 60% loss. it can only be rebuilt as a single-family home, and it's 2 duplexes. And so when it's bringing in $2,500 in rent, and then if anything happens and it can only be rebuilt as single-family, you're talking about maybe $600 in rent. So we're requesting a variance to be filed that if any loss occurs 60% or more, it can be rebuilt as it sits. And there's properties that are around it, also to the south, I think. I think that's all.
Okay. Were there any duplexes near?
It's 2 duplexes.
Well, nearby, in the neighboring properties?
Yeah, there's actually like there's like duplexes right to the right of the property that's like a 4-unit. It's 1 unit but 4 doors. But there's a couple of properties that are like they've made into duplexes and built, yes.
Board members, any questions? Seemed pretty straightforward to me. I'm cognizant that sometimes the code changes are for a reason and we want to enforce them, but this is one I think I could support.
Particularly given that this is how it's been used since
1930.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sounds like a motion.
I will make a motion that we approve the variance in case number 14678.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve case number 14678 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Awesome, thank you.
Item number 6, case number 14680, request for a variance to the maximum display area for an accessory sign in the C3 Community Commercial District located at 4025 Northwest 63rd Street.
Is the applicant present? Okay. Out of courtesy for the applicant, we'll move that to the end of the docket.
Item number 7, case number 14681, request for a variance to the required number of parking spaces in PUD 31 Plan Unit Development District located at 14040 North Pennsylvania Avenue.
Hello, I am Sean Hickman. I work for Interplan, that's 604 Cortlandt Street, Orlando, Florida, 32804. I've got some pictures. This is an existing Chick-fil-A, and they're going to be putting in a double drive-through here. The pictures that I handed out are of the canopies that we will be installing. There is currently parking on the western side against the building, and we'll be installing that second drive-through lane on that building. If you scroll up to the page before, yeah, right there. You'll see it on the west side. And these are pictures of that canopy, the cars underneath, and the menu boards. On the pickup window side, which is on the east side of the building, we'll also be installing a canopy, and that's the outside meal delivery canopy that's labeled on those pictures, just to aid in delivering to the cars downstream of the window. So instead of just delivering to the cars at the window, there will be a worker outside the window that will carry food from the window to the cars behind, to the second and third car in line. So when the first car in line gets their food, all 3 cars will move at the same time. This will just aid in speeding up the queuing for the drive-through. The parking that we're removing on the western side of the building will basically be converted to drive-through queuing. So the 9 spaces we're short will be put into that drive-through. So instead of people seeing the really long line for the drive-through, they will, instead of parking and walking inside the building, they'll actually be able to be in the drive-through and stacked this way.
What's this retail next? There's a huge parking lot here next to this property. Do you know what that retail is next to it? I'm really trying to get an idea of your neighboring properties.
Yes.
Because if we remove parking spaces from you, they're going to potentially park somewhere nearby, so.
It's a target. Yes, a super target.
Can you just talk about why you don't think you need the parking spaces that the code requires?
The problem that we're having right now is that the drive-through queue is actually backing up off-site and disturbing the roads around the site, which is causing traffic incidents off-site. And this will aid in pulling the cars on-site and removing those accidents off-site. This is primarily a drive-through restaurant. Most of their service is through the drive-through. As we stated on our application, it's about 75 to 80% through the drive-through. There's not many that actually do park in the parking lot. And the ones that are parking in the parking lot currently are just because the drive-through is too long. So they actually park there, go inside to grab their food, and take it to go outside. So hopefully this will clear up those spaces for the patrons that actually do want to come inside.
I think it makes sense to me, especially if it's going to alleviate some issues that you're having with backing up traffic.
Yes.
I think in maybe a different use, you might want those parking spaces, but for this one, I think it makes sense to grant a variance. So I could support it, but if the board members have any other questions or comments?
Was this the minimum number that could be removed to accomplish the?
Yeah, if you see that canopy there, to fit that canopy on the site, we had to remove those few spots, just the spaces next to the building.
The 9, that was the fewest that could be removed to
Correct.
accomplish this goal.
Yes.
In that regard, have you looked into the possibility of alternatives like landscaping or bicycle spaces that would reduce your overall parking requirement?
We can definitely incorporate bicycle parking. We've done that in the past. I don't know if we've looked at that yet on this one. I don't know what your code is for the parking. I'd have to look into that.
John, do you have any idea?
You could reduce it up to 25%, depending on how much extra landscaping or bicycle parking you put in.
There's not much room for landscaping, but the bicycle parking is definitely an option. Are you thinking about overplanting? Is that your intent? Or what do you mean by increasing the landscaping?
Well, the extra landscaping that you could, if you could, put in.
Okay.
If you talk to your plans examiner or plan review, they could calculate and see if you could get 25%, maybe less, I don't know.
Okay.
But they could possibly put that in and then reduce the number of parking spaces you're having to get the variance for.
Okay.
That was going to be my only suggestion that I had written down, and I hate to bring you back here because I heard you say you're from Orlando, and I'm only one member of the board, but something we look at is it the minimum necessary to alleviate the hardship? I do think you have a hardship, but potentially if you have these bike space alternatives and landscaping alternatives, you don't even need a variance, and we don't have to make that decision and have a variance. So if that's possible, even after you do that stuff, maybe you need a variance for one spot, one parking space or something. All of that said, the board might still be willing to grant the variance notwithstanding those alternatives. I don't know. I'll kind of take the temperature of the board, but I'm kind of on the fence on that. I could see it going either way, but anyway, if the board members have any comments on that.
So I do have a comment because it seems like it's also a safety issue, which I'm in favor for that. If you have less parking spaces there, that means that people have more room to get in and out of that drive-through. So that's why I would be in support of it.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, safety's good. For sure, because I was going to buy a Chick-fil-A the other day, and we couldn't turn left because people waiting in line and queuing out into the May Avenue. So, yeah, and there's a giant parking lot next to it that I'm sure is never at capacity. But I can support.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'd like to motion that we accept.
Any seconds?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve case number 14681 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a variance. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Item number 8, case number 14682, request for a variance to permit an accessory building being located forward of the rear wall of the main structure, encroaching the 15-foot corner side yard setback and not separated a minimum of 6 feet from the main structure in the R1 single-family residential district located at 7301 Northwest 107th Street.
Luke Williams, 7301 Northwest 107th Street. I sent you guys everything that I could think of to send you. I don't know what you need me to expand on, but within everything that I sent you, you can see from the pictures the space we have in the backyard. And like I said, the whole reason that the building is where it is because if we put it in the backyard, we have no usable backyard.
Kind of sticking with this picture, can you describe the variances that you're seeking in reference to this picture?
I don't actually know what variances Mr. Wilson and I spoke when I submitted my application. So what I got cited for was just the building not being beyond the rear wall of the main structure. That was the only violation I was cited for. So if we put the building, like I said, if the building was in the backyard and not in the side yard, which it's all backyard to me because it's in my fence. So if it goes into my backyard, then it has to come 6 foot off of my house, which puts it in the dead middle of my yard, which gives me no usable space in my backyard. As it sits right now, at least I still have usable space in my backyard for my family, for my animals, for whatever else. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not well versed in what variances I need other than, obviously, it's not 6 foot off of the east side of my home there. So.
Yeah, and a lot of times someone will get cited with something and bring it in and try to solve the situation. And John's actually helping because he's identifying other possible issues that while you're in here getting a variance, you might as well, solve all the problems in one swoop so you're not filing multiple applications. So it's helpful to get all your variances granted at the same time. But John, do you want to maybe explain the various things that are trying to be accomplished here?
Well, like he said, he came in because it was not behind the rear wall of the house. But the code also says that it has to have a 15-foot corner side yard setback. His fence is sitting on the property line, so that 15-foot would go all the way over to his house. So it is setting in that 15-foot corner side yard setback. Also, the code says that an accessory building must be 6 feet from the main structure. Setting in that area, there's no way to get it 6 feet from the main structure. I'll also say that he's on a double frontage lot, so he fronts, what is that,
107th and Manor Drive.
117th, but he also has a 25-foot or 20-foot rear yard setback. It's not rear yard, it's front because it's a double frontage lot. So he could not put it in the backyard. If he did, he would have to come here and get a variance for that. Not to mention that there's also a, I can't remember if it's a 10 or a 15-foot utility easement that's at his back fence. So he really has no legal place to put a building on this property.
And the only reason I know this is because I'm standing here right now.
Well, I mean, another kind of unfortunate harsh operation of the ordinance is just maybe this is a property that doesn't get one of these structures in the backyard,
And I understand that. And so my reply to that is, if that's how you guys want to rule, I'm completely okay with that, but it will force me to move from this home. If I cannot have a building to house the things that I have as a homeowner, then I will be forced to move from this home to a property that can house a building that will allow me to have the things that I have as a homeowner.
Right, I understand that. So for me, it's those dynamics, which again, I'm fine enforcing the law if it says you can't have a building, you can't have a building. But, you know, and I think about what the interest behind that law is, and particularly the only thing I'm particularly concerned about is the 6 feet from your house. That's the one that really bothers me. I could get on board with the variance from whatever variance is necessary to get it into the main portion of your backyard. But that close to your house, my first thought is if a lawnmower catches on fire in your shed, if it's 6 feet from your house, which is I think what the code's trying to prevent, it might not spread to your house, which might not spread to your neighbors.
I understand it's a fire hazard. I do understand that. I understand that aspect of it.
Yeah. So those are my kind of concerns. Not saying I support it or don't support it, but that's kind of what's going through my head.
As a homeowner, if I'm willing to accept that, you know, that issue that it is a fire hazard, I mean, I obviously know that.
Right, and it's not just you. I mean, the city is also trying to prevent a fire that starts here, spreads to your house, and spreads to your neighbor's house. So it's not just your protection, it's kind of the whole neighborhood. Was there anyone else signed up to speak on this matter? I don't think I have anyone. Board members, any questions or comments?
I do have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just by looking at this picture, is there any way that it can be angled differently and you gain additional footage?
Where it sits right now, I do not believe it can be angled at all.
Okay.
It's a 10 by 20 building. As you can see in this picture, it's approximately 16 feet from my house to the fence. So there's about 3 feet, give or take, on each side. When I bought the building, they told me they needed 2 feet between the building and a fence to construct the building. So I had them set the building 2 foot from the east fence. So I don't believe, and as far as physically moving the building, as you can see, I've started to put a new fence up. So I stopped putting the new fence up when I got this citation. Because if I have to try to remove the building from the property, the entire fence that is the older fence right there will have to come out. The post and everything have to come out. So it's on you guys. It's not on me. I mean, I have to do whatever you say. So it kind of just is what it is for me.
Mr. Williams, I can appreciate that you have a unique property here. Additionally, I think the board received a letter from your neighbor that, you know, she's fine with you. This building isn't obtrusive or anything. I feel like you've tried to look at other solutions, and you've kept it. I mean, it's not a huge, tall building, you know, going over the top of your roof or impeding just kind of the aesthetics of the neighborhood. So I would be inclined to approve the variance.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the peculiarity is definitely there. I'm like Sam, though, the 6 foot is kind of concerning.
May I ask a question of you folks? Is there anything that can be done to the building that would help safeguard and ease your concerns about the 6 foot from the building, from my main structure?
For me, it'd be moving it to the main portion of the backyard.
And I understand that.
So that gets it further away from everything. But
The problem he's going to have in the backyard is with that 15-foot utility easement, I believe he has 26 foot in the rear yard. And with the 15 feet and then the 6 feet, that leaves him 5 foot.
Hey, I'm not saying...
I'm not great at math, but I think that's correct.
Yeah. I'm not
And
saying it's
unfortunately,
possible,
for a guy
but-
like me, easements are not something I'm aware of at the time that I go to. I had my own business for 5 years. I closed it down, and part of the reason I have this building is because of the stuff that I still have from my previous business. And I was also cleaning out the garage so that my wife and my son can park their vehicles in there. So it actually helps me make room for my family, obviously, but it also is catching some leftover items from a business that I closed. So it's a need for me, but if it's a necessity for you folks that it has to go, then it has to go.
I would also say we could issue a variance for the double frontage, but you can't issue a variance for that 15-foot utility easement. So if you're trying to get 6 feet away from the house and you have to be off that 15-foot, I don't know that you're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a way around it, other than kind of more or less where you have it right now.
One more question. Are the utility easements set in stone if the building is considered movable, if it's not on a foundation as it is right now?
The easement doesn't move. The easement will stay there no matter what.
Right, but I'm saying the building itself, like, if you guys ask me to move it, it can be moved. It's not on a foundation like my home is. So
You're saying, could you set
you
it
understand
on
what
there?
I'm saying? Could it still be
Yeah.
set on those easements if it's considered a movable building and not on a foundation?
I think there's a way to do that, and they would be okay with it, but
You would have to apply for a revocable permit to set the building on the easement itself. Just from experience from utilities, I don't think they're going to support it. They will support some things for revocable permits, a fence maybe, or some other things. But I don't know that they would support that. So,
Okay.
And like I said, you couldn't get a variance for it. You could apply to close and vacate portion of it, but utilities would probably protest that also.
I'm sure they would.
I think maybe a way to accomplish something here that alleviates my concerns would be putting a time limit on it, and I hate doing that, but granting it for maybe a period of 10 years. And then if we see that nothing happens after 10 years, or if the code maybe changes or something happens, we can reevaluate in that period of time. That maybe something like that, but that immediately comes to mind as a possible way out.
That's acceptable to me. It's easier for me to find a place to live in 10 years than it is in 2 months.
Right, exactly.
I'll make that motion. Approve the application 14682 for a period of 10 years for the reasons that it meets the statutory requirement for variance.
I second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve case number 14682 for the reason that it meets statutory conditions for a variance for a period of 10 years. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you.
And it's
One
approved.
last question. When the 10 years is up, if I have already left this property, will this building be grandfathered into the new owner of the property?
Now, in 10 years, there will be an inspector that will go out and check. If it's still there, then a notice will be issued to either come back here or remove the building.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Item number 9, case number 14673, application for a special exception to allow lodging accommodations, home sharing in R1 Single Family Residential District located at 4701 North Stinson Drive.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharice Williams, here for approving my home sharing at 4701 North Stinson Drive.
Okay, can you sort of explain your application and the use of this property?
Well, the use of the property is for allowing those who are visiting Oklahoma as tourists to come in, use our place to stay, as well as those who are natives of Oklahoma who want to have a place to spend time with their families that their own place does not accommodate.
And how many rooms does this, or I guess I should say, how many rooms are you advertising this property?
We're advertising 4 rooms, which we have converted in addition of a laundry room because it has the space of a bedroom. So we're including that into our options for stay.
So is it 4 to 5 rooms?
Yes, but there's 3 bedrooms, but we have included the addition of the laundry room as a
So 3 to 4 rooms?
4.
Okay. How many people are you advertising this property can house?
For 12 guests, to accommodate up to 12 guests.
Do you know of any other properties that are engaged in home sharing nearby?
I know that there are some that are close, but I'm not really sure exactly where they are located. But I did do some of the searching to see if there were other I guess, properties around that we're doing home sharing.
What's the, or can you talk about the parking situation at this property?
I would say, okay, so when we stayed there from 2013 to 2017, my husband and I, we are very family-oriented, so I have a very large family. So when we had our family gatherings, we could get maybe 12 cars out there. And with the neighbors that we have, they're so accommodating. Sometimes we can park in front of their houses. You know, they don't mind. But as far as in our driveway, maybe 4 cars in our driveway, 5 cars in front of the house, and then on the side of the home, you can get at least 2 cars over there.
On the street, on the
Yes.
side? Okay.
So there should be another picture yes, on that side view there.
Okay. And were you renting the property after 2017?
Yes, I was actually renting the property, and then the renter that was in the home decided to move on to another property, and since it was available and you guys have passed the home sharing law, I decided instead of getting a new renter in to go ahead and do this property as a home sharing property. And I also, I had started with my primary property as a home sharing property, and with that property doing very well, I decided to go and do that as a home sharing instead of renting.
Board members, any questions? I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Was anyone here to speak on this matter? My only concern here is the 12 people, possibly related to the parking. I know there is a lot of on-street parking there, but you know, we have an interest, even if there aren't any protestants here, we too have an interest in kind of protecting the public from nuisance, and that's one of the conditions you have to meet in here for a special exception. So, you know, the first thing that comes to mind for me is maybe limiting the number of guests that can be advertised at this property and/or the number of cars that can be allowed at this property.
That's absolutely not a problem. With it being up to us with our own listing, we can make the accommodations of taking the guest number down to 8, and we also put in there of letting our guests know ahead of time, these are the only parking spaces that are available. So we can take the parking spaces down to maybe 8 parking spaces and let them know ahead of time. So before booking our place, they know that this is what is required. If you cannot accommodate with the 8 parking spaces, maybe our home is not going to be for you. So we definitely do not mind making those adjustments.
Did you have any security systems or anything?
We have surveillance cameras on the front, for the front of the house as well as the back of the house, mainly to make sure that the safety for the home and the accountability for if a guest says that they are booking for 8 people, that there's going to only be 8 people. So security and accountability.
I guess I did see that, I assume you're using Airbnb as the platform?
Yes, we are using that.
That Airbnb is going to go around and start vetting all these properties, and so, you know, that I think will be helpful. But, you know, that I don't know particularly that I want to limit the number of people just yet in this area, but I would like a restriction on the number of cars to maybe limit it to being advertised as 4 cars. So
Okay, so I'm sorry, are you saying to change the available parking spaces on the listing?
Right. So
Okay.
If the application's approved, it'll be approved on the condition that you can only advertise the property as having up to 4 cars, parking spaces for 4 cars available. That would be a condition that we can set in here, and that's what I would want, but I'm only one member of the board. So
I do have one concern because you said up to 12 people.
Yes.
So how many square footage is the home and how many bathrooms are in there?
There's 2 bathrooms in there, and it is 2,500 square feet.
So it's
there
a
has
pretty
an
large home.
addition. Yes, it's a pretty large home. It has 2 living areas and a dining area and a small kitchenette. So I am a family of, just with me, my siblings, there's 10 of us. So when my siblings and parents are there, I mean, it is ample amount of space, you know, to be able to, you know, enjoy each other. So I know it seems like a lot of people, but it is able to accommodate a large group.
the other kind of factor in this case with such a large property that can accommodate so many people is obviously the possibility that parties are going to occur at this property.
And we
There's
have
not a way to protect necessarily from our perspective against that, but, you know.
Seeing that I had stated that we do have another property, sometimes, well, there has been one case that I guess has booked a home under false pretenses, and because we do have surveillance cameras, like I said, for the accountability of who's going in and out of that front entry, we are able to get notifications of, I guess, aggressive movement. And so when we are notified through that way of the surveillance cameras, we're able to address that situation when there was a party at the home and was able to call the police to get everything, you know, taken care of, as well as communicating with our neighbors. So we make sure that, you know, we keep because once again, it is our property. You know, we want to make sure that, you know, it's not destroyed or, you know, anything that's going wrong with it. We just want to make sure that we can take advantage of this time that you guys have passed a law for the Airbnb, and as well as, you know, keeping our property still in good condition as well. So we definitely want to make sure that there's no wild parties and our things are not being destroyed, you know, so.
Okay, I think as requested, subject to the parking limitation that I've already discussed, I think I could get on board with a period of 2 years. And that's just given the size of the property. I just want to make sure that, and this kind of historic area, that everything works out for that period of 2 years, and the city council doesn't change the ordinance in that time. If you limited the number of people, I might be able to get on board with something a little bit longer, but I think it's probably preferable for you to have the full ability to have up to 12 people for a period of 2 years. But, you know, that's kind of where I stand. I don't know where the rest of the board is on that, but.
Yeah, I share our chairman's concern about the parking, because I know how it is having a large family. But, you know, sometimes when you lived there, your neighbors in the surrounding area may have been more accommodating because it was you and your husband and your family. But with strangers coming in and maybe not being as respectful of the property as you guys were, I think that may be an issue. I think it would be for me as a neighbor, even if the prior residents had been accommodating. So I think just kind of anticipating maybe that could be an issue with that many people, I could get on board with the approving with the parking limitation.
Parking. So, and are you saying just after as 4 spaces available? Did you say 4?
Yeah, just say maximum of 4 cars.
Max of 4 cars.
And
Okay.
ideally, they'll park on site in the driveway. I don't want to really limit that here, but yeah, just advertising it as a maximum of 4 cars.
Is the garage able to be accessed, or do you use it to store things?
We're using it to store things, but if that helps the accommodations for the property in order to approve the application, we can definitely make the garage available
All right. They just give you more spots.
to create more spaces.
I think maybe if you told us that you needed more than 4 cars, we might say, see if you can make the garage available. But if you're saying 4 cars is probably sufficient, I think.
And just to get a clear understanding, you're saying, are those 4 spaces excluding the driveway, or is that 4 spaces including the driveway?
I'm not proposing that we limit it in that regard. I'm just saying that your listing says that your property can only maintain a maximum of 4 cars. And so whoever's going to rent your property, wherever they want to put the cars, there can only be 4 of them there.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm envisioning.
So basically what you're saying, no on the street, because I heard her say earlier that it can hold 4, right?
I think she said 5 or so on one side of the street, 2 on the other.
Well, as far as in the driveway, how many total cars will that hold?
We've had maybe, it depends on the size. You know, if you could, I'm sorry, say that.
6 little ones, maybe. just
4
2-ton trucks.
4 compact economy-sized cars usually can fit in their driveway.
I think just sometimes we try to limit it. The issue that's unspoken here is enforceability is a problem. So how do we go and enforce 4 cars versus 3 versus 5, where they park, all that kind of stuff. I don't think we can technically require that people not park on a public street, and so we try not to limit it to that. But we can say in your advertisement, you cannot advertise any on-street parking. You have to advertise that it's only in the driveway, that kind of stuff. In that case, I don't think that this is a case for that, just because there's so much street parking that I don't know that a car or 2 is going to be that big of a deal. So that's kind of where I come from on that issue.
Yeah, just sold a house in this area, and there's a lot of street parking, for sure.
Because of the corner lot.
Do we have is the board accepting of the 2-year limitation, or do you want shorter or longer?
I'm good with 10, but I'll go with 2.
I'm good with 10.
Like I said, I could get on board with longer, but I would want you to limit the number of people, and I don't think that you'd probably want to close yourself off to that whenever you could come back in 2 years and potentially get a longer variance at that point with all 12 people. So, do we have a motion?
Sure. Motion to approve special exception 14673. That meets the requirements for a special exception of home sharing. My voice is going. For a period of 2 years.
And then with the advertisement of parking for...
We have 4 spaces advertised parking.
Okay.
I'd like to second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve case number 14673 for the reason it meets the conditions for a special exception on the condition that the property will not be advertised as being able to accommodate more than 4 cars and for a period of 2 years. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you for your time.
Item number 10, case number 14677, application for special exception to allow lodging accommodations home sharing in the R2 medium low density residential district located at 1604 Northwest 46th Street, Unit W.
Good afternoon. My name is Ronnie Jordan. Thanks in advance for your consideration. I'm here asking for a special exception for a townhouse that I purchased earlier this year, 1604 Northwest 46th Street, Unit W, which is the unit on the right. And so it's a 2-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom townhouse, about 1,200 square feet. And it has a courtyard in the back. So I am looking to rent that out as a home sharing short-term rental. What I've been able to research in the neighborhood and in the area, there are 6 townhouses there that are lined up. Those townhomes and the residents in those townhomes have garages in the back where most are parking their cars. My intention is to keep the garage for storage with the furnishings and all the kind of things that I have to do to maintain that rental. So I believe that at least on that side of the street, in front of those townhomes, really isn't a lot of an issue that I've observed over the last several months with parking there, because most of those tenants are parking in their garages. Across the street and down the street, there are duplexes and homes, and all of those have garage doors, so I'm assuming that they're functioning and people there are using that. I've observed that street parking hasn't really been too much of an issue in that neighborhood. I think there are a lot of renters also, not only in the townhomes, but across the street and in the area. Just hearing with the other case ahead of mine, I know that street parking is probably an issue with short-term rentals, but hopefully that answers maybe some of your concerns with regards to street parking. But I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have about it.
I just want to make sure I understand. There's a garage that would accommodate 2 cars, but you're not intending to clean that out and let that used as part of the rental. Is that correct?
That's my intention. Correct. My intention is to not advertise the garage because it's in the back, it's way in the corner, and then you deal with the garage door openers and that kind of thing, which complicates the rentals. So my intention is to use it as storage and not to make it available. For one, so I'd like to the storage. 2 is to not complicate it. I can just give you an example. I'm doing a keyless entry front door where, I'm going to do codes and how to get in, through an app. And then that way, tenants the guests can come in very easily without there being an issue. Because if you park in the garage, you have to go out of the garage into an open courtyard and through the back door of those townhomes. That's how they're all set up. So I just don't think that's ideal, unlike the previous case where if the garage were right in the front, that might make it a little more convenient, but I'm really trying to mitigate against any kind of problems with people trying to get into the garage, which is in the back and in a corner, and then going through a courtyard that's not covered. So my request is to allow them to do street parking. Again, it's a 2-bedroom unit. I'll advertise it as, there's 1 king bed, 1 queen bed upstairs, and then I'll offer like an inflatable mattress downstairs if there want to be a 5th or potentially a 6th guest. But overall, I really think that on average, there'll probably around 4 or less guests at the home. So I don't anticipate a lot of cars in the neighborhood, but I hope that answers your question.
So my question is, if the guests cannot go in and out of the garage, how many entrances and exits do you have to the?
So we have the front entrance, and then we also have the back entrance that opens up into a courtyard. And you go beyond the courtyard, and you can go through that back garage door area. So you can't get out of the home. It's just what I was referring to as coming in and parking in the garage and going through. This would be a little cumbersome, I think, for them and for me trying to not have any issues with people getting stuck or a key doesn't work. That's why I've gone with the keyless entry in the front so that there's no issue with people locking themselves out or in. But there is a front door and a back door.
Okay, well, that was my concern, because you want to make sure that you do have enough entrance and exit in the event that there is an emergency.
Yes, absolutely. You're welcome.
I do have one person signed up to speak, and then we'll call you back up after that.
I'm sorry?
I have one person signed up to speak, and then I'll call you back up after that. It's got Donna Whitehead.
Y'all live at 1601, Northwest 46. But y'all did some of the same
Could you put this microphone down just for the record? Yeah.
I hate talking to people, y'all. But I have some of the same concerns that y'all already addressed with the other property, the parking and maybe parties. Sorry. But the parking in front of that is really congested already with people that live there. And it just concerned me. It's supposed to be a residential area. Not for hoteling. But I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know why. I'm just nervous, y'all. But the parking
happens in here.
Really
you live in this
congested.
House, you live in this house across the street, it looks like?
On the corner.
Okay. On the corner?
Yeah. I can even
Can
find
you,
it there. Yeah, with the little crooked driveway there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That's what it look like. Can you give us an idea of what the parking is like on 46 there? I mean, it looks pretty tight based on the first picture.
It is. If cars park in front of those townhomes, people that live there, for whatever reason, they park on the street instead of using their garage. And I used to have a friend that lived over there, and she parked in the garage, but it was just kind of, it is kind of tight back there. So I can understand his concern of requiring people to park back there because it's getting in and out. But on the street, if people park on the street, I mean, traffic has to wait on somebody to pass by before you can get by. And me trying to get on my driveway sometimes, I have to wait for traffic. So, and then about, let's say, I don't know, just parties, I don't know if that's going to happen or how many people's going to be over there and people coming in and out all the time. It's already kind of a high traffic area. That road right there, 46, is major traffic for some reason in that neighborhood. And I think it's because there's apartments down here on this end, and then there's apartments right behind me, and there's hotels right behind me, the expressway. It's just crazy right there. And there's a park just up the street right there.
Do you know of any other home sharing operations in the area?
No, I got on the Facebook of the neighborhood there to try to get more people to come up here. And she said she thought there was one right there on Georgia somewhere. She said because there's strange cars there parked all the time. But that's all the response I got from that.
There's quite a few in that area. It's like a good city center, and there's highway access from going northwest, east, west. It's a good spot for them.
Yeah, good spot for them, maybe not for the people that live there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your comments, and I like people coming from the surrounding neighborhood because they have that experience with the area, and it's very helpful for us to get an idea of what to expect. So it sounds like for you, parking is your main concern, and then the general uncertainty around noise and parties and
Yeah,
stuff
because
like that.
there's sometimes down there where he's talking, like the people across from me sometimes, they'll have extra people over, and they'll park under that tree that's right there beside my driveway, and I have a time sometimes just getting out of my driveway. So, but if there are going to be extra people, that one or two tops cars can fit where he's at, maybe, with the people that already parked there.
I can find the conditions here. That is one of the conditions that we have to keep in mind, is whether it adds any parking in addition to what would already be there by normal use. So in this situation, it does seem like most of the tenants of these townhomes would probably park in the garage most of the time, although it's cumbersome.
They don't, they park in the front.
Yeah, well, if they're parking in the street, and then, that kind of cuts both ways. If they're parking in the street anyway, then a normal tenant of the townhome would already be parking in the street. But, if you have home sharing tenants that are also parking in the street now, it might amplify that. So we appreciate your comments. Board members, any questions?
Limited, is it 2 rooms, right?
Thank you for coming today.
So I appreciate her concerns. I spent a lot of time in the area in that neighborhood this past year since buying them, and let me address one of her concerns for sure is the party situation. On my research and even what the leading companies that do home sharing tell you and instruct you, you really should put your house rules to include not having parties and not having anything that seems like it has a potential for being a party situation. So my intention and my expectation is that my house rules will indicate that there are no parties. My house rules will indicate that only the people that are going to be sleeping and staying there are allowed. No additional unapproved guests are also going to be part of those rules. And again, I want to point out it's a 2-bedroom, so it's unlike maybe the other applicants that have come in where they're talking large numbers of people. I think on average it will be 4. With the parking on the street, it's hard to control who else parks in front of those townhouses. But like I said, those residents in those townhouses, at least from what I've seen, they park in their garages. Not to say that people don't park up front for convenience. What I can also share is that this year I purchased the Unit W, which was vacant. I also purchased the Unit E, which is 1604 Unit E, and that has 2 tenants in there that I have a lease with through the end of the year. And to alleviate some of her concerns, I would be very happy to talk with them and just make sure that they understand it's important that they park in their allotted garage to ensure that at least, those tenants of mine next door aren't adding to that kind of congestion. Also, I want to say, too, this has been an investment property for me, but I've invested a lot to make that property nice, as inside as well as outside. I've painted it and have a weekly grooming and yard person that comes out and puts some fencing in to create some other beautification things in the front of the house. I don't know. That wasn't the best picture. That was before my renovation, but we painted the outside. We redid the fascia and a lot of the woodwork around it so that it looks nice. We put some, privacy fencing to sort of mask the trash cans that are in the front yard, just to help beautify that, and I did that for those 2. So, I'm a committed and I feel like I'm a caring landlord and that I care about their space where they live. I used to live nearby off of 38th. I love that area. And I want to make it nice. I want to make it nice. I have tenants in one, and I think that they've been good tenants and good neighbors in the area. And while short-term rental is different, I will be able to have some control of who am I allowing and permitting to go in there based on that. And so my intention, obviously, since I've invested so much money inside and out, I don't want people going in there and having parties and damaging and being disruptive. I mean, that's definitely not my intention. And if there's anything I picked up from the lady before me is, maybe having a camera at the front door pointing out is maybe a really good idea that I would definitely go back and look about incorporating. So I hope that you consider that too in your decision, but I feel that because of the number of rooms, there won't be a lot of additional cars that aren't already there anyways, if it even was not a home share situation.
Mr. Jordan, one concern that I have, and I can appreciate what you're trying to accomplish, because when I go to an Airbnb, I like the convenience of not having to have to be able to use a code and all of those things. But, one thing that I'm thinking of is maybe as a way to address your neighbor, at least one neighbor's concern, and kind of what I think is, I understand that it may, you're talking about maybe making your other tenants make sure that they use their parking and not park on the street for convenience or otherwise, as a matter of course. And those are long-term residents. To me, just as a matter of fairness, I think it may be more fair to require these temporary people to use the garage for parking and to free up that space from, for other residents and for more long-term, tenants that may need to park there for convenience, rather than the other way around. And I understand what our chairman is saying, that, that argument can kind of cut both ways, but from a fairness perspective and to address some of these concerns from the neighbors, it seems more fair to me to, if we were to approve this, to at least, require your tenants that are coming in to use that garage as parking, to alleviate some of the concerns and the congestion. That's just, it seems
if I could respond, and I appreciate that. I was really kind of brainstorming as I heard her comments and stepped up to readdress of what else I could do and could control. Maybe I need to think that through, and that might not be fair to the current tenants, or they might sometimes need to park in the front for convenience. But that was just something that kind of came to mind with that. Again, I mentioned some of the concerns with the garage and getting through. I don't know that there is a product out there that is keyless entry with the remotes and with the garage doors and all of that. With her specifically, if she's on the corner, if I think I know where she is, she's across the street and on the corner of 46th. So this unit is 6 units down, so it's further down the road. I would say about halfway down the road. I don't disagree that she is. I'm sure she's had those issues that she shared. I think with this particular unit being further down the road, not being a large unit.
And just so I'm clear, I'm not specifically trying to address her specific concern. I appreciate them, and we've all heard them, but just in general, our job is to kind of think about the entire area. Sure. And the street does look very narrow, and I've had that experience before too, having to wait behind somebody because there's two, cars parked on both sides of the street and not enough for a lane of traffic. And so that's kind of what I was thinking, is just more in terms of, that the entire area, not just, who neighbors you on either side.
I see.
Looks like the people that park their cars back there in that driveway too. But I could see where that'd be difficult to get to your garage when you got other cars blocking your way, so you can't swing in. I don't know. I'm just kind of torn on that. 2 rooms, not more than 2 cars.
Yeah, I'm torn on it as well. Something that I always keep in mind is these are exceptions, right? So it's an exception to the rule that says no home sharing. And so sometimes it's just going to be difficult to have home sharing. I'm okay with that because it's an exception. This might be one of those cases where it's difficult. I understand the convenience of having the garage, particularly. I love storage space and, especially to have your cleaning supplies and all that in the storage space. I understand all of that, but this might be a case where we need to open up that garage to allow parking. I don't know. I don't know what the temperature of the board is on that, but I understand your point.
Could I ask a question? I heard you earlier talk about limiting the cars. What if part of the requirement for renting that space, whatever, would be to limit it to 2 cars where we wouldn't have anything more than that? Would that be more acceptable?
Yeah, the problem with that is I was thinking immediately when I saw this application in that street was 1 car, which I think would be a pretty big burden on you. And I guess I should put the question to you whether you'd want to take that burden. But I was thinking 1 car, frankly. Other than that, it would be opening up the garage. So, again, I'm only one member of the board. The board might get on board with 2. I might get on board with 2, but I had 1 car in mind.
So I have mixed emotions on this whole situation, given the fact that you're going to be renting that space out for a short period of time, not to exceed 30 days. Correct. So even though it seems like it's causing a problem because you are going to be renting out, for me, it seems like it's not a constant problem, your situation, because your property more than likely will not be rented every day of the month.
I'd hope so, but yeah, for me, probably not. That would be ideal, but sure.
I know, but chances are it probably won't, because if it does, then that means maybe you need to look at renting it versus having it for that type of property. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm kind of mixed in between what's going on here.
Yeah, and in that regard, and concerning both comments, I mean, if this were available to renters, which would be a permitted use, or you don't need an exception, people would be using that garage, and cars would be parking in that garage. And the fact that it's home sharing means, based on what you're wanting to use it for, they're not going to be using that garage, and they will only have street parking. So, I mean, that, to me, really makes me want to either clean out the garage or allow just 1 car allowed.
In addition to that, I just think that the likelihood that there would be more than, if it was just you, like Chairman was saying, the likelihood that there's only 1 vehicle there, and you use street or garage, but the likelihood that you're renting it out to maybe up to 6 people, there's probably going to be more than 2 or 2 cars.
So, well, then what if if part of the, one of the requirements, I guess, of the exception license or the exception is if I have them use the garage. I need to think through that a little bit. I mean, that's obviously possible. I'm sure I could do another keyless entry into the back door through there. I would just need to, probably create a manual situation where you manually lift the garage and just leave it unlocked, and they can get in through there. Would that make the board more comfortable if I ensured that that anyone who rented the property knew that they could not park on the street and that they had to use the garage parking?
Yeah, I think that's good. And my comment earlier, it looks like people are using that driveway to park. So, if you can park behind the condo, not in the garage.
Oh, you're saying like just park along that back? I mean, people do that.
That's what people are doing anyways.
I think I'd prefer that you advertise that they need to park in the garage. Just there's not more congestion back there.
But to answer your question, yes, I could get on board with that.
Okay.
If you are advertising it in that way and that's what you're requiring your guests to do. I mean, again, this is what Chairman was saying earlier, is a matter of enforcement from our side. I mean, we can't go out there and look at these, but that's going to be your responsibility as a responsible property owner that wants this home sharing exception.
Well, it will, on the issue of enforceability, it will carry with the special exception that it has to be advertised in any advertisement as garage-only parking. And so if it ever comes to the board's attention that it's not being advertised that way, then you come back before the board and it's reevaluated, and you risk losing your special exception. So
no, if you grant me that, I'll follow the rules and do what I need to do. I don't want to be back here getting in trouble for anything, that's for sure. So absolutely. I shared with you what I preferred. you weren't comfortable with it, so I can be on board with the second one. I just, have to, purchase a couple more of those keyless entry things so it's convenient for them, but I can do that.
Board members, any other comments, or do we have a motion?
I would move that we approve the exception in case number 14677 with the requirement that it be advertised for garage-only parking.
Like second?
For how long? What's the term?
Oh, yes, we did.
We can go up to 10 years. I would say probably 2 in this circumstance, but...
Could I request perhaps maybe 6?
I will say that I think is probably the longest that I've seen. I think the longest I've seen is 5. And it was in a particular area that was not subject to really a lot of disputes, we didn't think.
Sure. Sure, and I understand. It seems like the dispute today was really the street parking, which I'm committing to address no cars in the street. So if there are no other concerns with that location, I would just ask to consider 5 years.
I would like to recommend that we do the consideration of 5 years.
Yeah, my only comment is the reason, just to give you some context, the reason that we limit the number of years a little bit is, this is relatively new, and no one really knows how it's going to shake out, and we all kind of anticipate the city council making some changes at some point, and so we don't like to grant 10 years, given all those factors. And so I could do 3 to 5. I don't know what the board is thinking. I know if we're thinking 5, but I could do 3 to 5.
I would amend my motion to, do I need to make my whole motion over again? Okay. I would move that we approve this special exception for case number 14677 with the requirement that it be advertised for garage-only parking. And I would recommend that we do this for a period of 3 years.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve case number 14677 for the reason that it meets the conditions for a special exception on the condition that it be advertised as garage-only parking and for a period of 3 years. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved.
Thank you.
Item number 11, case number 14679, application for special exception to allow lodging accommodations home sharing in the Historic Preservation District located at 924 Northwest 17th Street. I might also add that this was approved or recommended for approval yesterday at the Historic Preservation Commission.
My name is Jordan Elledge, and I am at 924 Northwest 17th Street. And as Mr. Wilson just said, I am requesting a special exception to allow home sharing at my primary residence in a historic preservation designated area. So I think this will be the first one to go through in Heritage Hills Mesa Park, but I have looked on Airbnb, and there are 14 active Airbnbs right now that all got grandfathered in. I think it was January 1st was the cutoff. My wife and I were not intending on moving, but we moved in May, and we had this garage apartment in the back that was separately metered, which I believe means it's grandfathered and you can do long-term rentals. But we looked up the Airbnbs and really liked that idea, and that's why I'm here today. And this would be 2 people max, and they would park in front of our house, and there would be a 1-car max. It's a very, I think it's under 400 square feet.
This is only for the garage apartment?
Yes.
Okay. And you'll be on site in the main house?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's pretty small, and with just 2 people, I couldn't imagine it getting loud or any sort of a party. I have a 5-year-old and an almost 3-year-old, so no one would be more upset about noise and partying than my wife and I. So there'd be no problems there.
I'd say if the HP's on board, then I am. Definitely. I was kind of surprised nobody was here. I know why.
I think just because it's the exterior, the other house, the apartment house, and not the main house. If this were the main house, I feel like we'd be in a much different territory.
Wow, this whole place would be full.
I did run into a few neighbors while we were trick-or-treating with my children that were asking me some details, but I was happy to see that no one filed a complaint.
Were there any protests at HP?
I spoke with Mr. Wilson today. When I got all the paperwork, thought this was the only meeting that I was supposed to go to, and I realized yesterday that I missed it. And it's on me. I felt horrible about it. But then Mr. Wilson said that it was approved. So I'm not entirely sure on that.
I checked to see if it was recommended for approval, but I did not check to see if anybody protested, so I don't know.
Well, apparently it was approved over the protests, and presumably they would show up here. They normally show up here as well if they're going to protest at HP. I think this fits perfectly within an undisputed home sharing operation that the city council contemplated. I think some of the, if you're renting the main house for home sharing or something, those are always disputed, and even if there's not a protest in here, we're always pretty hesitant to grant those, and at least we'll ask a bunch of questions. Mm-hmm. But this is the kind of situation that I think was contemplated as an undisputed kind of exception, where you have the actual homeowner living there with his family in the front, his or her family in the front in the main house, and they're renting out the garage apartment in the back. I mean, I think this fits perfectly within that. I'm fine with this. The issue for me would be how we'll address parking and the term, how long we want to grant this.
Make it the first full 10 years? No?
I think I'd be comfortable with that, actually. That's how comfortable I am with how squarely this fits with it. I could get on. I don't like doing it, but I could get on board with it if the board wanted to. Can you explain the parking situation? What you anticipate?
Yes, parking will be just in front of our house, and there is to the right side of our house, there is a walkway that goes along the side and leads right back to the right there. It leads right back to the what would be the Airbnb. As far as parking on the street, there isn't much in front of our house, with the exception of my brother-in-law and my in-laws came over last weekend, and my brother-in-law parked in front of our house. In an estate sale 3 weeks ago, I literally haven't seen a car park in front of our house. But it would be just a one-car limit.
Yeah, I was willing to probably give you two. I don't know how the board feels, but 1 to 2 cars maximum for on-street parking. And given that they're not allowed to park in that driveway, I mean, maybe you're going to allow them to, but at least it's not advertised as that, and it's not set up that way. Since it's all on-street parking, that would make me want to go for maybe 5 years and not 10 years. There's so much uncertainty around the parking to grant it for a full 10 years. That's where I stand, would be limiting it to a maximum of 2 cars and for 5 years. So.
That works.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve special exception for a period of 5 years and to limit on-street parking to 2 vehicles.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve case number 14679 for the reason that it meets the statutory conditions for a special exception, subject to the following conditions: that the property be advertised as only having availability for 2 cars and for a period of 5 years. Cast your votes, please. And
Thank you all very much.
I believe everything else was continued at case number 6.
6, yeah. Motion to continue case number 6.
Second.
Yeah,
I have a motion and a second to continue item number 6, case number 14680, to the December 5th meeting. Cast your votes, please. And the motion's approved.
One thing left. Adoption of the 2020 Board of Adjustment meeting schedule.
We all better be here on December the 5th.
It's true. Did anyone have any conflicts or comments on the schedule for the next year?
We have too many meetings in January.
Wow.
There's 3, yes.
That's the filing deadline, isn't it? I only see 2, yeah. I think he's looking at the filing deadline because there's 3.
If we can propose amendments to it, I think what we did last summer was, didn't we move the meeting that would have been around the 4th of July to the middle of July? And then
Well, because it fell, I think
Right.
it fell on the 4th
So,
of
I mean,
July, so we
it's-
had.
Yeah, I didn't see any conflicts. Yeah. September 17th was Constitution Day. That's the only thing I saw. So maybe we can do a special presentation.
We could also look at doing July 16th rather than July 2nd. That's a possibility for that. That might be better for people that's going to go on a trip or go do something. If y'all want to make that a condition, we can do that. That's easy enough to do.
The only thing I'll say is the current schedule, I'm on a different board. It's not a city board, and our schedules have always been perfectly opposite Thursdays, and so I'm able to do both. So I might have to miss that meeting. I don't know yet, but that's my only thing. And then I know we'll have at least one absence on the 17th.
Well, this would be, I mean, because we typically have 2 meetings a month. Our meetings are always on the first Thursday and the third Thursday, so we would just be going from the first Thursday and doing the third rather than the first. But does that not fall into your?
Ours are the third Thursday of every month. So, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm fine either way. Are we good with this current schedule? Okay.
That's fine.
Do we have a motion to approve and a second?
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the 2020 Board of Adjustment meeting schedule. Cast your votes, please. And it's approved. I think that's all the cases. No additional items, communications, and reports. Do we have any citizens to be heard?
This is John's. Yeah. Thank you, John.
It's John's last meeting. We certainly appreciate your service over these years. I'm not really... 40 years. Yeah.
I don't know how many people are watching.
Probably a couple 100,000. You know. Yeah. With these home sharing applications, our viewership is up. It's good for the ratings. So, advertisers are loving it. No, John, we appreciate your service over all these years. Certainly, I'm not sure how we would have deliberated on many of these cases without your input. So I know you'll be very, very missed.
Well, you'll get Mr. Chambliss for a few meetings, maybe. I don't know how many before they hire somebody else. And hopefully it's somebody.
Am I going to get to see JJ deliver my agenda at my house?
Probably not.
Probably be Jerry.
Well, we'll call you back as a consultant on many matters, I'm sure. So you have to cancel some of those fishing trips.
Okay. If you call.
No citizens to be heard or other business. We are adjourned.